Yo, what is good, y'all? Welcome all the Fire students out here trying to get learnt today. I'll be your professor, Professor Tvboo. You can call me, Mister or whatever you like to call me. Today, I want to teach y'all how to up your fill game and just in general your entire drum game. And the things I'm showing today, they're pretty basic, but they're things that are overlooked a lot that are just straight game changers. If you listen to any of my music, I do a lot of fills, and they sound really complicated, but they're not. They used to be, but I found a way to make them more simple, more effective, and easier to do. That's something I kind of want to teach y'all today, is how to make super dope fills out of aren't supposed to be used as drum fills. And that's always fun. You get really weird, wonky ideas doing stuff like that. And just full disclosure, y'all, I ain't read a manual. I haven't read a manual, I'm smart. I'm street smart. So all the terminology I'm going to be giving today might be a little white trash, okay? But I'm going to explain it very well. You might be like, damn, I learned it better from the white trash lingo than the actual fancy manual book. So with all that being said, let's get started, okay? The thing I want to show that's very important for this entire lesson, messing with transients and kind of making them do what you want them to do. All right, if you don't know what a transient is the initial hit of a where you have the initial hit and then there's that release after it. But the transient, imagine a little kid, hitting a wall or whatever. He hits that wall, rings after, and then he gets a spanking after, like they used to do when I was a kid. I don't know if they do that anymore. But every time that kid's getting a spanking, there's that initial hit. Same with the wall, right? And Ableton does a really good job at picking up transient markers already. You see all these warp markers right here. I just have this tiny end loop. I figured this is a good loop for the lesson. But all these markers right here are just transient markers, right? And whenever you warp a long sample in Ableton, depending on what you have it default as whenever you warp it, it's going to usually go to beats mode, unless you've changed that in your preferences. And that's what we're working in today. I want to work in beats mode, nothing but beats mode. And what beats mode does whenever it first comes up is it preserves transients, okay? And it's automatically on this little drop down area. It's on this loop back marker. All right, so if the original tempo of the sample is 145 beats per minute. So if I'm all the way down at 74, it's going to sound kind of shaky, but the transients are going to sound spot on. That's just because it's preserving the transient. It's trying to make sure that it doesn't get messed up till the next hit, right? So it sounds shaky. You know what I'm saying? It sounds robotic, right? But the mode I want to talk about today is I want to talk about this mode up top on the drop arrow. I call it the wall mode. I don't know what the hell it's originally called. I haven't found a name for it. I like to call it the wall mode, okay? The reason I like to call it that is because instead of bouncing in between the transients, trying to preserve somewhat of the sound, it's going to preserve what it can, and it's going to hit a wall and stop. And it's going to wait until it's time for that next transient to play, so it's just going to be dead silence, right? So whenever I turn on this wall mode, you can hear how the sample's stopping as it's going. All right, now let's go back to our original tempo. Now, I want to kind of use this wall mode to tighten up sounds to make it to where I can make them be drum fills, all right? So, say like for this loop, if I turn this little transient envelope rate down, it's going to sound tighter. What that wall is going to come towards that transient and just be by itself. See what I'm saying? And we can get as tight as we want with this.
Make your music stand out, get more views, and way more engagement. Bring your music to life. Get Music Visualizer in every format, even for social media. Get started today. The link is in the description.
With this, we're gonna get loose with it. Depends if you like it tight or loose. That's all up to you, Daddy. But so let's use that idea with the wall mode on sounds that aren't supposed to be used for drum fills. So I have like just these weird percussive sounds right here. And I want to turn these into a fill. So let's just take this sound. I went ahead and just picked out samples just so we're not scrolling through my damn sample library for a tutorial. And I want to do a triplet fill. Just get into triplet, just Command 3. I'm just going to duplicate it like this. And so I have this little simple drum pattern built. and this is where a fill would go. So just to play the loop real quick. Sounds like butthole, and not the good type of butthole. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this into a fill by using the wall mode in Beats. So let's do that. Let's bring it in. And let's bring down this transient envelope. Make it a little tighter. Cool. Now we can turn this into a fill now. I'm just going to highlight all these, and I'm going to consolidate. And now, I don't know if y'all have noticed, so whenever you are transposing things around in Beats mode, sometimes it can start sounding really bad, you know, the higher or lower you get. And then to fix that, you'd either go to Complex or Complex Pro. That's just because Complex isn't a warp mode that tries to preserve transients, tries to preserve the whole sound best it can. All right, so if you want to fix that and make it to where it sounds decent and like it sounds good in Beats mode, you can just use the wall mode. So let's use that now. And I'll show you different examples to what I mean, because I feel like I stumbled on my words there a little bit. So I'm just going to do a little fill out of this. All I'm going to do is open up this envelope box down here, and I'm just going to go down to Clip, Transpose, and I'm just going to transpose this bad boy around. That's how we do some pitching. I don't know how advanced you are watching this or how beginner you are, but this stuff is very important. All the trappy fills, snare fills you hear in like trap music or anywhere, you know, it's usually transposing and then stuff like this. So I'm just going to go up and down an octave. We'll see how that sounds. And now we have a little fill thing, and we can make it as tight as we want by messing with this wall over here. And there we go. We have that going on. Another thing, before I make another fill, just to kind of backtrack to something where I was saying. So, like, say we had a little snare roll or something like that we were, like a snare build. Am I in triplet mode still? I believe I am. So, like, say we had this thing going on right here, okay? And we were pitching it up. So, we can use this wall mode. Go to Clip, Transpose. Say this thing was pitching up over, we'll say an octave. Oh, hell. A little sensitive. Don't break my heart. So we have that, but say we needed to make this longer and we didn't want to have to undo all those times to kind of, you know, we didn't want to undo it just wasting time, right? So we go over here. Say we wanted to be like da 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 da, like go from 8th notes, 16th notes. So what we could do is come over here, copy it, paste it, Command C, Command V, and let's times 2 it. Let's stretch it, double the tempo, original tempo. So now we have this. So like if we were using complex mode, it would sound super stretched. The sample would. Just doesn't sound right. So we can go to Beats mode. I think we have to pitch this down a little bit so it sounds like it's flowing into it. Probably too much. There we go. And that way it doesn't sound stretched, none of that noise. Really good ways just to, you know, get what you're trying to get. But back to the fill game. I just had to go on that tangent just to kind of re-explain myself a little better. Like I said, man, I didn't read the manual, y'all. And you don't need to either. They might tell you to. And you probably should. But instead, you're watching me. So, there we go. So, let's do another little cool, wonky little fill. I'm going to do another triplet. Just because I enjoy those. All right, for this one, I'm going to do the wall mode as well. And for this one, I'm not going to consolidate this and transpose it around like I did prior. I want to be really random with this. I'm not going to overthink everything I'm doing right here because why would we? I make bass music, dude. Sometimes bass music doesn't have to make sense. Sometimes the weirder stuff makes more sense, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to overthink this, man. I'm just going to go to each individual one and I'm just going to transpose it at a random rate. Not thinking about it at all. And we can get crazy with it. Get crazy. And yeah, we'll have some fun with this. Why not? It's supposed to be fun. And we'll just get wild. Girls Gone Wild. Do you ever think about how Girls Gone Wild went out of business as soon as porn on the internet came out? Like, that's wild. That's wild. I just thought about that. Things that I think of. All right, so let's just see how this sounds going into that fill. It's a long fill, to be honest. Mike could just shorten this bad boy. Sounds wonky to me. I'm into it. And if we're not happy with it, we could just highlight them all and then move them all the transposers at the same time. I think I like that a little better. So now we have these little cool fills. And this is really good. The way we're doing it like that is we're able to make an entire fill just from one sound. Whenever I was just starting out and just starting to put out songs, all the fills I would do would be like, you know, each one of these hits right here would be a totally different percussive sound. And I would run out of samples really quick. I would have like, you know, probably like 80 different percussive sounds throughout the whole track just because I'm doing a fill a lot. And this, you know, we might not be doing fills this much, you know, every freaking 4 bars. But, you know, if you are, this kind of help you out a little bit. And I kind of want to show you how you could even do fills with sounds that you don't even have to add anything to it, right? So, like, say we didn't have these fills at all right here. You know, we just had this snare hit. What could we do? Let's make a fill with just the snare. And I want to do that by stretching this bad boy. So I'm going to warp it, and I'm going to times, you know, triple the original tempo. And, you know, once you hit it at a certain time, it's not going to let you stretch it anymore. So to fix that, oh yeah, I was just hitting times 2, stretching it, double the tempo. And not sometimes, after a while, you're not going to be able to stretch it anymore. I could come in here and make a warp marker and stretch it, but I'm still limited. So to get around that, also, we have to work in complex mode right here, just because right now it's just trying to preserve the transient, not the full sound. So it doesn't sound stretched, but we go to complex. Now it sounds stretched. But I want to stretch it even more. So let's consolidate, Command-J, or right-click and hit consolidate. And I'm going to do that again. You know, completely stretch it as much as I can. And we can do this as much as we want, as many times as we want. But I kind of just want to do it right here. Let's see what we got here. Cool. We're off to somewhere cool. Now, let's do a fill inside of this little view right here. So let's go to clip. Instead of transpose, let's do volume. I kind of want to do some volume modulation. Automation, not modulate. What's it want to do? Who knows? So I kind of just want to do a little curvature action. We can curve it by holding Alt, and we can actually make this line curve. Let me duplicate this bad boy. Let me just see what this sounds like right now. Sounds pretty cool, and we can go in and you know, be as surgical as we want with this. And now what we can do is do some transposing. If we want, you know, now we have this little, it's almost like a tape stop in like a pitch down and like an LFO on it, but it's all within just the sample itself. And this is why I know a lot of y'all probably work a lot in MIDI, but this is why I work strictly in audio for anything basically, just because we have a lot more control. We can do a lot of this. I don't know if we could do all that in MIDI. You might can. It might just take a little longer. Workflow might be a little different. So yeah, those are some cool ways to kind of up your fill game. Something else I kind of want to point out that I like to do in my songs, and it's really effective whenever I'm listening to other people's songs, is panning the fills, but not doing it just randomly, making the panning make sense. So what I like to do is I like to imagine a sound breaking apart or getting sucked in, and we can kind of get that by using the pan. So I'm going to automate it on the automation line. I don't know how you do this in other DAWs. I'm sure you have an automation line too. Let me get back in triplet mode. I am in it right meow. So what I'm going to do So for one of them, I'm going to make it go from really wide to thin. So a way we could do that, and it's a little, tedious because we're actually having to go on and do each one by itself. But it's effective, and that's what we're always looking for is effecticity? Is that a real word? I hope it is. Effecticity. I really hope it is. So I'm just getting a little shorter going in each time, and we can be as aggressive with this as we want, So let's just see how this sounds. Kind of just going into it. Pans around, sounds good. Let's do this other one over here, and let's make it do the opposite thing. I know I forget who no, I don't. I was watching a Yeti and Toadface show at Imagine Festival, and I remember hearing them do a fill, and it just kept on going all over the place, but it wasn't just they were panning hard left and hard right, they were actually making it make sense, the panning is actually doing something. And as a producer, I hear that and got torqued, but as a listener, people hear it and just be like, whoa, that was crazy. They don't understand what's going on, but it just messes with their ears and perspective. There we go. Whew. Whew. So like I said, I'm just going to get a little bit more intense each time. Just kind of breaking apart. Just kind of makes your fills a little bit more interesting, and that's all we're trying to do here. Simple concepts, very simple concepts, very effective concepts. All right, so now I want to show y'all how to kind of use that wall mode on things other than your fills to kind of make your drums pop a little bit more. And something I like to use them on is my hi-hats. And so I grew up as a drummer, and so whenever I hear, or think of a drummer. Whenever a drummer's hitting a hi-hat, he's not hitting it at the same velocity. It's not the same volume every time. One hit might be a little tighter than the other one. He might have the pedal down a little bit harder than the next hit. So, the shorter transient might be an actual thing. So I like to kind of take that and apply it to my hi-hats, kind of make it sound a little groovier. It's going to have a lot more bounce. It's going to sound a lot more analog. So, especially with eighth notes. So I freaking hate, I hate whenever I hear eighth notes like this. And here's the thing. This can work sometimes like this, where it's just straight eighth notes, depending on what you're making. But to me, that sounds really boring, super automated, super computerized. So something I want to do here is, on the second hat, I want to warp this. I want to do this wall mode that we had went over. Let's bring this bad boy down. And I'm even going to bring the volume down a little bit. We'll say -6. So it's just going to be a little tighter, little looser. And I'm just going to duplicate this over, and you're going to hear instantly how these hats are going to have a lot more bounce. They're going to have a lot more groove, and they're just going to sound more lively. That sounds way better than just straight. And you can do that technique right there for anything, little snare builds. If you're trying to make a snare build sound more real, if you can get a real snare sample and you mess with the transient and also a little bit of volume changing, you can get that. You can make some real snare rolls, right? So something else I want to use this on is that loop that we went over earlier. Let me just add a second track. This little loop, right? So say we just had it on top of this. It's just way too busy. If we want to kind of tramp this up, give it a little bit more bounce, and you can do this with any loop, any type of percussive loop, kind of just want to get a little bit more flavor and groove into your tracks. Go to this sample. Let's go to wall mode. I'm going to bring this bad boy in. And like I said, all this is doing is just closing in. That wall is just closing in on the transient, making it a little tighter, just making it right up on it. So let's just do that, and let's just see how this sounds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the low end out of this too. Let's just see how this sounds. And we maybe can even pitch this up. Let me just delete where those would happen. So now we have this little loop that would never, I won't say would never, but by itself normally, that's way too, it's way too busy. But now, just little ideas, kind of make your drum grooves a little better. And like I said, you can take these tips and apply them to anything. You know, this wall mode's really good with vocals. You know, if you have some type of vocal loop and you kind of want to chop it up, you know what I'm saying, without using an LFO, you can use the wall mode, and it will kind of hone in on the transient, shorten it down a little bit. The thing that we did with the snare, where we stretched it and did a little fill just out of the snare itself, that's really good for doing it like on your basses or like a vocal. Like if you want to, you know, make one of your mid basses do a little bit more than it normally would, maybe like on one section you stretched it and then like, you know, did some volume modulation or automation and pitched it around, and then it's like, whoa, that one bass is really cool, just did a lot of really cool stuff I've never heard do before. Wow, where'd you learn that? You learned that from me, y'all. Hope y'all enjoyed this lesson. Hope these are things that y'all can take